Right. Hello, everybody. I'm Kirsten from the MassRealty Communications team, here to talk with Sebastian Belfanti about the West End Museum in the West End. We're going to look at the museum as an interesting place to visit, as well as an important part of preserving Boston's rich history. So, thank you so much for joining us today. Could you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, so my name is Sebastian Belfanti. As you said, I'm the director here at the West End Museum. I've been here for about a year and a half, for about
Okay.
5 months as a volunteer, as program director, and now for about a year, just over a year as director.
Okay, excellent. That's awesome. So, just to start off in general, a question I like to start with is why is history important to a community and to a city, as in a general sense?
Sure. I mean, I think it really helps develop a sense of place for the people who are living in the area. Gives you a feeling of being part of something bigger than just you within the community. Of course, community groups like WECA here also contribute to that. And I think, I mean, for me, walking around the neighborhood, like I love just like seeing buildings and passing places where I know people lived, or things happened. I frequently walk by the site of the second or third largest bank or like robbery in U.S. history.
Wow.
The Kitty Knox's house, a famous African American cyclist,
Hmm.
and like Daniel Webster's law practice. So many just like neat places that it's fun to know that they're there.
Right. So it adds kind of like an extra value to the community beyond the present day things that you're walking past this area and, oh, right, that happened there. And wow, a little sense of awe in your everyday, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's excellent. So now focusing in specifically on your organization, your museum, what is your main mission and your goal with your museum?
Yeah, so the Western Museum's mission is fundamentally to share and preserve the history of the Weston neighborhood. The neighborhood exists, or the museum, I should say, exists primarily because of a urban renewal project that occurred in the 1960s that tore down almost the entire neighborhood, with
Oh.
save about 12 buildings in the core portion of the neighborhood. And you know, so preserving that story is important to us, and it has a lot of implications for cities at large, for Boston, and for how we interact with our communities. A lot of like community review boards and laws that require those sort of things stem directly from the West End Project. And um, actually, the project is literally the textbook example of kind of urban planning gone wrong. So,
Okay.
so we want to kind of preserve and learn from that history, save the kind of memory of the past neighborhood, celebrate the kind of rebirth of the neighborhood as a residential and economic powerhouse, and look forward and to what the neighborhood and the city at large will look like in 20, 50, 100 years.
Right. Okay. So a little bit of integration in what was there, what's here now, and what's to come in the future, sort of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Right. So born out of a bit of a sense of desperation to save everything, but now integrating the new and the old, I guess.
Yeah, and it serves that purpose well. I think it keeps people who lived here before involved in the community, but also provides an opportunity for people moving here to engage with that history in a way they wouldn't be able to otherwise.
Right. There needs to be a balance between like preservation, but also opening that up to other people and being welcoming without sort of closing those doors. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So what is your most popular attraction or exhibit or thing that people come to see at the museum?
Sure. I think right. It's usually our rolling exhibits, which is kind of an asterisk answer, right? Because they change. But our most recent one on cycling in the West End
Hmm.
focused on a MGH doctor and two female cyclists who were prominent residents in the neighborhood in the early 1900s.
Okay.
Well, late 1800s, early 1900s, and so those include Kitty Knox, who I have mentioned is a Black cyclist. She really challenged both gender and race roles
Right.
in the late 1890s. And Annie Londonderry, who it was actually the first internationally recognized sports star in the world.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think those exhibits let us kind of play around a bit, right? I think our our permanent exhibits tell a good story. They're always there, and people should learn that story. But presumably, you're not going to come back 100 times to see that. This gives the opportunity. Usually changes to 3 or 4 times a year.
Okay.
That to like experience some new like specific stories from the neighborhood, which I think is a nice way to engage with something new and different somewhat regularly.
Right, of course, it's nice to have something new and new opportunities to learn something different, and like you said, to keep coming back, because maybe you'll come back to see the same thing again, but for more so for locals instead of tourists, to have them coming and seeing and learning new things all the time.
Right.
Right. Is there any interactive components that you guys work in with those exhibits?
Yeah, so it hasn't been a huge portion of our exhibits in the past, but we're currently working on a bit of a renovation of the space that will ultimately include those kinds of elements. So
Okay.
a year and a half, 2 years from now, the answer will definitely be yes. There'll actually be spaces that reflect like, a kitchen or a corner store, that kind of thing in a old building in the neighborhood. But for now, it's mostly reading pictures.
Right, that's okay. I mean, it's something to look forward to for sure.
Yeah.
And you guys are relatively new, like in terms of museums, I guess, in Boston, right? When did you finally get it or formally get established?
In terms of museums in Boston, yeah, that's probably true. We're about 20 years old,
Okay.
but 10 as an officially established museum, and
Right.
10 is sort of a like community center. So yeah, we're both new and medium aged.
Right, that's fair. I mean, just because the history is so long there that I think there's kind of a bit of a relative sort of look at it. What is your personal favorite part about the museum as the director?
Yeah, I think I really love the opportunity to, again, engage with all these like different kinds of stories and explore and discover new things about Boston and about the neighborhood.
Right.
So it's really, it'll change, right? Sometimes it's a lecture that we've had, and then sometimes it's a new exhibit. It's the kind of sense of discovery that I get being here, and that I hope that we do a good job of sharing with the public. We send out even just emails every week with a biography of someone who lived in the neighborhood. There's always kind of something new, and it really that really is an exciting part of meeting the organization.
Right. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of community engagement, which is great for anybody that lives in the area or is thinking about living in the area, that you have these opportunities. Yeah. Is there any opportunities for people to kind of get involved in these projects if they maybe have something, maybe they go through their attic and they find something that is interesting to bring to you guys, or?
Yeah. So we have an archive that does grow pretty regularly, and we're always looking for new stuff.
Okay.
And there's we have plenty of opportunities to volunteer. I'm actually the first paid staff member, so it's almost an entirely volunteer organization still, and there are plenty of leadership roles to take in the organization on a volunteer basis for people who are interested.
Okay, awesome. That's great. So what kind of groups do you normally get to the museum? Because talking with some other museums, it's mostly tourists, but do you guys do a lot with school groups or with families? What is the main traffic you get?
Yeah, we get a lot of local people, a lot of tourists. We do a decent amount with colleges too.
Okay.
So for 2 reasons. First, urban planning and sort of community exploration classes. So if you're a freshman, a lot of colleges now, I took one in Seattle, have a like introduction to the city class.
Right.
And then the West End project actually was studied when the displacement happened by a lot of psychologists. So we get some psychology classes as well.
Okay, cool. That's interesting. So
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about the history of the museum, like how you guys formed under the pressure of the changing neighborhood. But what is sort of the future of the museum? What do you see other than the interactive exhibits? What else do you see coming around for the museum in the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years maybe?
Yeah, well, I mean, we are, as I said, looking to really update our whole space. We're going to be putting in a new presentation space, which I mean is part of that whole deal. Some
Right.
public art, which will be nice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, redesigning our website to better serve that sort of exploration that I was talking about before. You know, I mean, it's always, again, I hate to repeat myself,
It's okay.
but there is always something new. And, you know, in the past, we've looked at the jails in the neighborhood. There's a really famous criminal case at MGH, the history of different roads, why they're named what they are.
Okay.
You know, so it's a really wide range, and we'll have a ton more of those in the future. We're looking at projects now about local parks. The West End has one of the first playgrounds in the United States. It is now just part of it's a field now.
Okay.
But yeah, these just different. Yeah, I mean, there's always something.
Right. There's always something
I
new.
certainly didn't expect to have like penny farthing bicycles in here when I started, and yet there they are. So.
Right. So anybody thinking about coming around to visit, definitely come often because you might be surprised with what you find there.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, I think that's a pretty good summary for anybody looking to come check you guys out. In the description of the video, we're gonna have a link to the museum and a little bit of a blog, just a little bit more about you guys. And hopefully, once things are obviously a little bit more normalized, we'll have a few people coming to check you out there for sure.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sebastian, for all the great information, for joining me today, and for keeping us excited and on the edge of our seats about all the new exhibits that are going to come around.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, so if anybody watching this wants to do an interview with us to talk about your museum or about parks or about your establishment of any kind, do check out the other link in the description and we'll get in touch. Thanks so much.
Thank you.